I think the biggest mistake that people make is they see the life of successful entrepreneurs, the public version of that, the Instagram version of that, which is the show reel, and it's the stuff that we show once we've done the decade of fucking hard work. And people don't want to do that bit. They want to jump straight to the Ferrari or the holidays or the car or the house or whatever the thing is.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. And on this week's Property Education Masterclass, we're joined by the ever-inspiring Sarah Poynton Ryan. Now, Sarah tells us her whole story of going from over £60,000 worth of debt and being in a very dark place to then building a six-figure property business in less than 12 months. Today, she runs a financial education system, educating people about how to invest in all different types of markets. It's really, really interesting. There's so many nuggets, so much wisdom here. I would implore you to listen to the entire episode. Guys, if you're inspired by this episode, if this episode helps you to kickstart your own personal entrepreneurial journey, I would please ask that you follow the show and leave us a review. It helps us so much, I can't say. If you've got any questions around property or serviced accommodation, please pop those questions in the review as well. We'll pull those out and read them out in our midweek podcast, the Airbnb Nomads Toolbox, and give you a shout out on the show. Until then, guys, settle in. This is a fantastic episode with Sarah. I can't wait for you to hear it. Here we go. Sarah, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. Property investor.
Yes.
Best-selling author.
Yes.
Wealth dynamics guru.
Try to be.
You tick all the boxes for this show. Very excited to have you here. Thanks for coming. Thanks for giving me your time. I was telling you outside, I saw you speak at a networking event probably about 3 years ago now in Brentwood.
Yeah.
I was very, very impressed. The finger food was abysmal, but you were really good.
There.
Yeah, it wasn't there.
There wasn't
That's why it was so bad. You were really, really impressive. I love what you had to say about systemization, automation of business and how to grow client base and how to build coaching programs. We had a bit of communication then.
We did.
We jumped on the old messenger and we were going to do a few bits together. It didn't come off, unfortunately, at the time. Wrong time. Maybe in the future we'll see what happens. But I was very impressed. I've followed your journey along since then, and I know you're doing incredible things. I wanted to have you on to, spread the inspiration and the knowledge throughout my growing audience. There's a lot of stuff to go over here. I'm going to do my very best to cram it into the little time that we have together. Okay. Why don't you take us back before you turned into this guru of how to make money and how to invest and how to create financial freedom and grow a pension pot and all the rest of it, which is so important. Tell us about the first business you had going back to 2013, which was a little bit different.
Disastrous, I think, probably the word, but it taught me a lot of lessons. So I was in recruitment. That was what I did for my career. Yeah. I learned a lot about sales, marketing. That was kind of what my focus was. And it's what I was very good at the same time. But I knew that I didn't want to work for someone else. Like, I knew that I just don't want to be employed. It just isn't didn't connect with me at all. So I always knew I wanted to have my own business, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And my sister-in-law went to a wedding once, and I used to be a bit of a photographer. I used to do some weddings, and I do light painting, actually. It's what I really enjoy if I have the time. And
like canvas painting?
No, so light painting is like photography at night in pitch black, but with maybe a torch or a light to create an image in darkness. And my sister-in-law said to me, "You should start a photo booth company." I was like, okay. And so I did. And it was literally, that was the reason behind it. I took everything I had at the time, which was not a lot, and I ordered a photo booth from a place in Liverpool. And I booked onto like a wedding fair and took 2 bookings of weddings, used that money that they paid me to go and pay my deposit on my photo booth. I didn't even own it at the point that they booked me. Right. Probably not what I should have done, but I was learning. And I launched a photo booth company, and it was okay. It was good enough to get me out of my job. So I ended up leaving recruitment to run that company in 2013.
Can I just ask, Sarah, how did you, because a lot of people want to get out their job.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, especially with social media and online these days, all about starting your side business, building your side hustle. But in reality, well, is it reality? You did it, so maybe it is reality. But for a lot of people at home with the kids, cleaning the house, driving them to school, cooking the dinners, it's like, where the hell's the time to start the side business? So how did you find the time to build that alongside your job?
Late nights, early mornings, weekends. The only time I had was late nights, early mornings and weekends. And so that's when I did it. And, you know, I don't have children and I don't pretend to understand what it's like to have to get humans up and feed them and get them to school and things like that. But
I prefer dogs.
Yeah, I prefer dogs. We just got a new puppy. Nice. Massively prefer dogs. But at that time, I was the manager of a recruitment branch. I'd opened the branch for the company. I had a team of people. I had real high expectations. And I was working probably 60, 70 hours in my job anyway. So whilst I wasn't feeding children and keeping people alive, I was working and keeping a business alive. So finding the time to do my side hustle, if that's what we call it, around that was hard. It was really hard. I stopped going out. I didn't go to birthday parties because I was doing weddings and events. I was up in the morning sending the emails, raising the invoices, doing the things that I needed to do before I went to work. And, you know, it took about a year to get to a point where the company was making enough money for me to be able to come out of my job. I was a well-paid person. So it was hard to actually replace my income. And if I'm honest, I didn't really replace my income. I jumped before I'd replaced my income. And I trusted that if I gave back to myself the 60 hours I was working for somebody else, I'd be able to get my income to where it needed. And I did.
So was the plan with this photo booth business to try and scale it
to it was the plan.
A larger business?
Absolutely the plan. It's not what happened. Right. So it definitely was the plan. I wanted to, 20-something me had big ambitions for having giant businesses. And I did all the right things to get me to a certain level. But then it was a beginner stuff and I wasn't aware of how to actually run a business long term. So budgeting, cash flow forecasting, hiring the right people, outsourcing, systemization, all of that stuff that you have to be able to do to run a business. I didn't know any of that. So I built the cash, I was selling and that was great. But then once you've got a business that's operating, you've then got customer service to worry about and, hiring people, payroll, all of that sort of stuff. And I didn't have a clue.
Let me ask you this, Sarah. The last couple of people I've sat down with that are doing fantastically well also came from a reasonably high-paying job. They wanted to get out of their job to give themselves more time. Yeah. And then on building their business, obviously now they're coming through this phase and now they're systemizing, they're hiring staff, they're growing, they're starting to remove themselves from the business. But for many, many years, they can, and someone said an expression to me, Dan Cheetham said to me that he felt like he replaced shackles for shackles. Was there an element of that with you that you ended up putting more time into this business than? Yeah,
and not even just then, like throughout the last decade, almost decade now, I've found myself in moments where I'm like, shit, I've just got a load more tie downs. That's not really what the plan was. And you have to reset again and go again. Yeah. And then like my first business, I didn't know all of those things. So it taught me every way not to run a company. And sort of 2014, 15, actually the opposite of what I thought was going to happen happened. And I was actually hemorrhaging money. I didn't have the right support. The customer service was wobbling because I was wobbling and turning up and delivering average service because I felt average. Yeah. It was all falling apart. So end of 2014, early 2015, I had to admit that it wasn't going to plan. And I had to get a job again. So I'd gone out of having a job, the holy grail of working for myself. Having to go back was soul destroying. It was awful.
Was that quite mentally challenging for you?
It was awful. I felt like I'd failed. And, on the surface, everybody thought I was doing well. My friends, my family, everybody that I cared about could see that I was running my own company and paying my bills and all that sort of stuff. Business owner, yeah.
Entrepreneur.
Absolutely. But it was a mess. And I totally underestimated that sales isn't the only part of running a business. There's so much more to it. So when I had to go back and get work, I did. And I actually got a job as a consultant in Birmingham, and I lived in Milton Keynes at the time. Right. So I was traveling 4 days a week. And then at weekends, I did the photo booth, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday, I'd go back to Birmingham. It was horrendous. But it allowed me to pay the bills and keep everything ticking along, because by about sort of the early months of 2015, I was about 60 grand in debt because I'd been using my credit cards to subsidise the business, and I'd taken deposits a year before from brides, and I didn't have it was just a mess. So I had to go back and get work.
So in hindsight, knowing what you know now and where you are now, looking back with the knowledge and experience that you've got, and now what you spread to other people, what would you say to people? Because I think this is the biggest roadblock that a lot of the time isn't discussed enough, right? Everybody wants to get out of their job. Everybody wants to build a side hustle. Everybody wants more money. But for most people, if you're in that position, let's say that you work at Tesco's, or you work at Burger King, or you're a mechanic, whatever it is, just to kind of, not there's anything wrong with that, but you're an employee, right? Yeah. If you want to move into that business space and you don't have the knowledge that you've just kind of spoken about, and that can cause the business to not work, just inherently the fact that you don't know, you might have the idea, you might have a great concept, but you know nothing about business because you're an employee. So what advice would you give to people that, want to move into a kind of more business ownership role? Do you learn business first? Do you take a business course? Like, which way around do you do it?
I'm not sure you can learn. It's like learning to drive, learning to ride a bike, right? Yeah. You actually can't learn it without doing it. You can learn the theory. You can have a head full of theory, but if you've never implemented any of that theory, you're not going to make progress. I think the biggest mistake that people make is they see the life of successful entrepreneurs, the public version of that, the Instagram version of that, which is the show reel, and it's the stuff that we show once we've done the decade of fucking hard work. And people don't want to do that bit. They want to jump straight to the Ferrari or the holidays or the car or the house or whatever the thing is. And the one thing I'd say to everyone is be prepared for it to be hard work. Be prepared that you're not going to be a millionaire in 5 minutes. You are going to get more grey hairs and a few more wrinkles. You are going to have days where you think, oh my God, why have I done this? This was a mistake. But that's the price we pay for the freedom that we get for being an entrepreneur.
To choose your own destiny. To
choose your own time, and how you spend your time and who you spend it with. The price we pay for that is that actually there are really hard decisions to make. Yeah. There are really hard choices. Like every decision I make today in my business impacts whether someone else can pay their mortgage 6 months from now, a year from now. There's a big responsibility when you run a business. And all right, you might not have a big team, but you're still responsible for your own world as well and everything in it. So be prepared to not see it happen immediately. Be prepared to work for 5-10 years before you really feel like you're successful. And then you'll have laid all the foundations, you'll have done all the hard stuff, you'll have gone through a lot of different seasons, and then it will feel like you've just about got to the starting point of being successful. I'm a decade in, and whilst I can see I am successful in a lot of ways, I definitely don't describe myself as a guru. It's not a word I would ever use for myself. I don't describe myself as an expert even. I'm learning.
Always learning.
Every single day. Every single, the markets, the economies, the way politics impacts money, like every part of it, we're learning something new. Be prepared to learn all of the time. You're not going to be able to just be successful. It doesn't work like that.
What's the old expression? The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yes. Fascinating, that, isn't it?
You've got to put in the work, and I've spoken about this, and every time I sit down with someone on this show, and you listen to the pain and the sacrifice and the losses and the failures and the determination and the giving up the weekends and getting rid of the Netflix. This is all part of the journey.
Yeah.
None of it's going to happen overnight. So you touched on the fact that going back to 2015, you was in colossal amounts of debt.
Yeah.
You was a business owner. You at the same time was running up these credit card bills. Yeah. Did that keep you awake at night, having that kind of debt? Or did you know that it was all going to come out in the wash down the road?
No. I think at the time I completely underestimated how much energy and bandwidth it was taking up to be in debt. It wasn't until the day I cleared my last credit card, I was at my nan's house, cried like a baby. I was so proud of myself. But it wasn't until that day that I realised just how much energy debt takes up in your head. when you're in debt, and it's not good debt, so there's a difference between good and bad debt, but when you're in bad debt and it's costing you more money a month in interest than what one of your household earns in a month, that's not good.
That's
a scary place to be, right? And bills mount up, and we managed to figure it out. We did manage to sort of keep everything ticking along, but we never paid all the bills every month. We'd pick the ones that we like, the ones that were the most serious. The ones that came in brown envelopes were always the priority. And
I hate those brown envelopes.
Yeah, I still hate the brown envelopes, unless it's got a check in it from HMRC, and then I'm all right about it.
When does that happen?
But it was... We got married and we went away for a week, and everything we talked about, are we going to go traveling? Are we going to buy a house? Are we going to have a baby? Are we going to get a dog? What are we going to do with newlywed vibes? Everything just came back to
money. But
we've got no money. And we decided that week, we were like, this can't be our life. It just can't be. This can't be forever. And that's how I ended up moving into property. I need to do something different. And I'd listen to the webinars and the books that say you don't need any money to get into property and you'll be a millionaire in 3 months and all of this sort of stuff. And I was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I learned very quickly that that's not true, and it's not how it works, really. Somebody somewhere has to transact some money. So I didn't know it was all going to be all right. I just knew that couldn't be my forever. I couldn't keep feeling like I did about money. So I just decided to do something about it and learn something new.
Okay, so you're still running the Photoshop business at this point, putting all your time and energy into it. You've got all of this debt.
And I had a job at this time as well.
And you've got the full-time job, but you're starting to realise that...
And I'd just planned a wedding.
And
I was in all the debt.
And you had all the debt. But you're starting to realise the Photoshop business probably isn't going to cut it. It's not going to get you out of this hole that you're in.
Yeah.
So that's when you turn your attention to property. Was there anyone else in your family was there any influence? Was there a conversation down the pub that someone said, try rent to rent? Or was it something that popped up on a YouTube channel?
No, so I think in terms of influence in my family, so my nan and granddad were very successful business people. So I'd always seen what business can do. My granddad sadly isn't with us anymore, but he was very successful and he built business. So I saw that from quite a young age of what business can do. And I also saw them buy houses, renovate houses. They lived in them while they did them. They didn't really do flips like we do flips now. And they'd live in them maybe for 10, 15 years, and then they'd sell them. And then they'd buy another rec pub or something, and they'd do it again. And I saw that throughout my life. And I guess subconsciously I was watching them be property developers, but I just didn't, that's never what they called themselves, absolutely not what they would say that they did. So I'd have that influence. And, my mum runs her own business. She runs a beauty salon. My auntie runs her own business. So I'd been around business people my whole life, really. But I think in terms of the actual decision to move into rent to rent, which is where deal packaging, where I started, I think I just got hit by an ad. I don't really remember what I clicked on or whatever, but I'd watched webinars with various different people. They were all men. They were all promising the earth, and I
all stood in a drafty Holiday Inn.
Grey, ugly suit. It was. We've all been on the same webinars, right? And I thought to myself, well, hold on. If this is true and you can make all this money from houses that you don't own, then I'm up for that. But 2, I looked at these people and thought, well, I don't see myself in them. And actually 10 years ago, there weren't a lot of women doing what we do. There is now. There's amazing, incredible women doing what we do. But there really wasn't 10 years ago, 9 and a bit years ago. And I was like, well, okay, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I work really hard. I've always worked really hard. I'm just going to give it a go. And at the time, there was a guy that that lived in Milton Keynes, and I lived in Milton Keynes, and I couldn't afford training. I couldn't afford a mentorship. I literally didn't have any money. And I couldn't put it on a credit card because I physically was maxed out. There was just nothing, and I couldn't apply for loan. I just couldn't do it. So I basically said to him, look, if I can have your number and your WhatsApp number, and I give you 50% of all the money that I earn for the next year, will you just answer my questions as I'm moving through the process? And he said, yeah. Now, I thought at the time that I was getting the best part of that deal. I was like, brilliant. I've not had to pay any money. If I make money, I'll pay him. But I had actually not really much faith that I would, because I I was in the headspace then of being in debt, having a failing business already, having left my job and having to go back, and the failure and all of the like heavy shoulder shit.
There's no reasons that you'd be overrun with confidence.
I wasn't overrun with confidence. And he was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I was like, brilliant. At least I'll learn something. It's not cost me anything. I'm winning. Well, actually, I did £100,000 in my first 12 months, and I stuck to the promise, and he had 50 grand of that.
You became his new best friend.
And we ended up creating a business together, and we ended up making a lot of money together. And we're not in business anymore. I exited rent to rent when I realised rent to rent actually wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But it served its purpose for me. Deal packaging served its purpose, and it taught me a lot about determining good from bad investments, not just in property, but in the markets and also in people. It taught me a lot about the type of businesswoman I want to be, and it taught me a lot about what I find acceptable and what I don't find acceptable in people that I work with. So that period of my life, it wasn't what I expected. It just went like that, and all of a sudden I was very successful. I had more money than I'd ever seen. I cleared my debt in 23 months from
That's
literally
incredible.
the first phone call that I made for rent to rent. And then
what was it rent to rent HMO?
Rent to rent HMO. Well, so we did a bit of a hybrid thing. So we would do 4 and 5 bedroom detached houses, but we would run them as contract to SA.
Okay.
So it meant that we, instead of doing a flat, 1 bed or 2 bed flat, we approached a lot of corporates, and we had big employers in our town. We had contracts when construction companies would come into town, and they did like a big paint job on the city centre car park, for example. Well, they brought in 18 guys for 6 months, and we housed all those guys. Yeah. So, but we did them in big houses, which meant we maximised our profitability.
No doubt you was phenomenally good at what you was doing.
It was great fun.
But there was also probably an element of the fact that you was one of the early movers back then, because now obviously every man and his dog, because the training courses is doing rent service accommodations, contractors, you know, and people are struggling. People are going to houses, market rates are down across the market because it's such a busy space, but you timed it perfect. Yeah,
and I mean, it taught me a lot. What I realised actually quite quickly is that you can have more money than you've ever seen and be the most miserable you could possibly be.
Right.
And that's where I was then. You know, I was really proud that I'd cleared my debt. I was really excited that there was this business I'd created. And in between that, I'd also sold my photo booth company, because I'd applied the rules I'd learned in the first year to that, built it to the point where it had its money back. I sold that business, not for a lot, but I sold it to somebody else who wanted to take it. So
Did you get all your money out of it?
I got all my money back, and a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. But I was so unhappy. And I was unhappy because my business wasn't systemized. I was working with the wrong person. My business partner and I had very different values, actually. We realised once it was all kind of cooking, we had very different values as human beings. And so it just didn't work out. My marriage was really struggling because I was at work all day, every day.
And quite newly married at this point.
Newly married. He was still in his job at the time. And I was I was at my desk at 6. I was leaving the office some days at 11 o'clock. I was building beds at weekends, moving tenants in, moving tenants out, dealing with evictions, like all the stuff I was making the same mistakes that I'd made in my first business. I wasn't hiring right. I wasn't outsourcing. I wasn't systemizing. I wasn't I didn't have a team of people to support me.
Let's dig into that just for a minute, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Don't mind getting a bit personal, because I think it's a really good point, and a big part of a lot of people's journeys. If you're in a relationship, a marriage or a long-term relationship, and you want to go from employee to business owner, and all of that workload 10x's overnight, sacrifices, the social events go out the window, the pub on a Friday night, forget about it. How did that look? What were the conversations that you had at that time? What was causing the pain, and how close did you come to it all kind of falling apart?
Well, I moved out, actually. If I'm really honest, in 2017, we separated.
So it was really bad.
We weren't sure whether or not we were going to fix it. And we knew we both wanted to. So it was just, we hadn't learned how to deal with the new normal. And, I actually went and stayed with my nan. My nan is a very traditional lady. And she's like, well, you're married. You need to just go home. Yeah. That's basically
Nan's a great line.
My nan's like that. And my nan actually is my measure of... my moral compass, actually.
Just brush it off and get on with it.
And I spent some time with her, and she, you know, we talked a lot about things, and actually my husband and I figured it out. And actually what I'd realised when I started to listen to him and he was listening to me about what was happening in that period of our life is that we'd been, since we'd met, along the same trajectory, right? We both had jobs, we both into the same music, we both loved the same things. And all of a sudden, my career's doing this and his was ticking along, and he's very fulfilled, happy human being in his job, but we were living very different lives all of a sudden. You know, I was being invited to speak on stages. I was surrounded by super successful, very wealthy men and women, and I was going to some of the most beautiful like hotels in the world. Like there was just this whole new dynamic part of our life that we hadn't really talked about because it just happened like that. And we didn't stop and take a breath and go, right, how are we going to deal with this then as the new normal? Because it was our new normal. And it was hard.
Was it, and I may be way off here, I don't know your husband, great guy, but was there an element of jealousy there on his part?
I don't think it was jealousy. I think it was a lack of understanding of each other and where we were at that time. But I'd never said to him, I'm going to do this, and the ambition I've got is over here. So he still thought, well, my ambition was the same as it always had been, because I'd never told him any different. And my ambition was all of a sudden all the way up here because I'd found something I was really good at and I really enjoyed. And he'd also not consciously said, I don't want that either. Like, we had to figure out how to come back to being central, and we did. And it, you know, a lot of talking and figuring out, but it was a really hard, again, really successful business, being invited to speak on stages, you know, doing all the really fun stuff that I love to do now, but behind the scenes, things were buckling. And I think in business, when you've got, you know, family, kids, husband, wives, whatever it is, bring them along with you. Don't forget about them when you start to. And I probably, to a certain degree, kind of just forgot. I got so headstrong into what it was that I was doing. I forgot I had a real life there. You know, yeah, Friday nights at the pub, they do kind of stop when you run a business. And it's not so much the Friday nights, it's the Saturday mornings and the headaches that you can't have. You can't be operating at peak performance for your business and for the people in your business and your clients and all that sort of stuff if you're also feeling like shit. And so that, you know, those sort of sacrifices, those things have to change.
Because you're operating, whether you know it or not, a completely different kind of vibration.
100%.
Like different frequency. You're putting off vibes whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is important. And I've been there, you know, with my previous partner when I was kind of starting this journey and I had all these ambitions and things were starting to happen. And I was having to take phone calls at dinner time and I was having to answer text messages at family occasions and stuff like that. And, you know, it got to a point for me, obviously there was a lot of other stuff going on. It wasn't just that, but she was going left and I was going right. And at some point, you know, a choice had to be made, because if you're not on the same path, and, you know, I'm glad obviously you guys worked it out and now obviously you're doing tremendously, but there are a lot of people that unfortunately, if you want to make the change, if you're in a really shitty, unhappy position, broke, pissed off at work, hating the job, and you want to pivot, and that person, your life partner, is like, no, let's stay on this track. I like this road. You might have to make a choice.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that Andy and I have always maintained is that the reason that we work is because we are so different. We actually are the complete opposites. And he's always grounded me and I've always inspired him, and that actually works for us. That's our relationship. And we've got to a point now, you know, the businesses have done what they've done, and in the end he has left his job and he now works for the business. You know, he runs our buy-to-let portfolio and he deals with, we're renovating a 300-year-old house. No one really knows how old it is. He's doing a lot of that work at the house and all those sorts of things. So, you know, it was a really tough time where he had a job and still had to ask for holiday, and I wanted to just book a flight tomorrow to Spain because I was bored and I was cold, and that created conflict. I was being a bit selfish in the fact that I work really hard. I shouldn't have to ask for holiday from somebody else. And he had a job and he didn't really understand why I wanted to just impulsively jump on a plane. So we had to reconnect and come back to the center of, okay, what is it that makes us work? And, you know, ultimately we are great for each other when we play to our strengths. And now he's my biggest champion, really. We understand the dynamic, which is that, you know, I do all of the very public, vocal visibility stuff of our business, and you know, he's the glue that holds me together and reminds me to eat and, you know, puts petrol in the car so that I don't have to think about it, that sort of stuff. And he and I work when we know what we're doing, and actually that's where we're at now.
Sounds like the perfect partnership in so many different ways.
We have our moments, obviously, like everybody, but yeah, we figured it out.
Good for you. I'm glad. If you love to travel like me and you understand the power in escaping the money for time exchange trap, but you just don't know how to do it, then building an Airbnb consultancy business could be exactly what you have been looking for. Right now in the UK, there is a completely untapped opportunity through helping struggling Airbnb hosts by turning around their underperforming properties and generating you huge commission payments in the process. We are going to teach you all of the tools and all of the techniques that we've learned over the last 5 years through building our very own multiple six-figure Airbnb business, arming you with everything that you need to swoop in and save the day. Minimal startup costs, zero risk, and almost unlimited potential. Sound good? Welcome to the Airbnb Consultant. Contact us through any of the channels included in the studio notes to get the conversation started. You went on a kind of around the world trip.
We did.
For a few months.
2016, yeah.
Was that before or after you went through this period of unsettledness?
Before. So we went June 2016 to October 2016.
And was that like a celebration?
2017 is when we kind of had our little blip.
Okay. And was that like a celebration of clearing the debt and starting over?
No, because at that time we still had the debt. So because when we got married, we really didn't have any money. We booked a week in Colchester for our honeymoon. Yeah, we went to a little farm in Colchester. It was great. Like, I'm an outdoors girl. There was chickens. We could pick eggs in the morning. It was great. Parts of Colchester. And we spent a week doing that. And that's when we decided actually we were going to start a property business in and amongst everything else. But so that was like the September. We got married at the end of September. October, we went away. November, I started the business. And by the April of the following year, we were making money. I was deal packaging. We had rent to rents. You know, we were doing really well. And we said, well, why don't we go away and prove that actually you can live a life running a business in property without being in the UK? And that was like our challenge. So we booked a 3-month trip.
Yeah, I love that.
And it was amazing. It was the most incredible, weird experience, because people were saying to us, well, what, you know, someone asked me if I'd started selling drugs because all of a sudden I had all this money. What are you doing? I was like, well, I've started this business back in November. I hadn't really told anyone. I was just doing it quietly, and it's doing all right. And we're using the money from packaging deals while we're abroad to pay for our trip. And we did 10 grand in fees while we were traveling, and that paid for the trip. Thing is,
when you're having those conversations with people that are just in a job and know nothing about property, they're going to be like, yes, Sarah's washing.
All of a sudden I was driving an Audi, brand new Audi.
Yeah, for sure.
I had 2 phones, a black Audi, and I was traveling the world.
Yeah. Have you seen Sarah's burner phone?
Yeah.
All of a sudden she's got that, an Audi, she's going on holidays.
Absolutely. There was definitely those conversations no, I just started a business, and actually, you know, I was very grateful for the fact that whether it was timing or hard work or luck or, you know, whatever the combination of those things were, I just got very good at it very quickly. And I thought, I'm going to capitalize on that. And so I did.
I can completely understand now, and we'll move into the, you know, the later part of where that's led to where you are today, because I don't want to get stuck too much in the weeds on property, because I know that was kind of a short period of time that took off and then you moved into other things. But I can see why having that experience of going from a really dark place to a really successful and happy place in business has kind of led you to this place of now wanting to educate other people who are in that really shitty dark place. Because I know people who are so miserable with where they are. You know, they're either in a job or they can't get a job, and they're living on next to nothing. They're not enjoying any of the fun things in life. But then they're in this kind of this catch-22 of, well, I want to go and learn that, but I've got no money to pay for the course. You know, and it's like, well, and it's a difficult one to answer, because they come to you and say, you know, how do I get out of this shitty circle that I'm in? I can't get a job. I can't get the money to invest into learning the new skill that I need to get to the next place. So, you know, I understand now why you've moved into this place where you're in, which is educating people on how to get out of this trap. Yeah. So talk to me about where you are now. 2017, you set up Cognito Wealth.
Yeah. So Cognito Wealth was It wasn't intentional. Again, I was at a period where, because I lived my whole life on Facebook, like I documented everything that I was doing in property on Facebook. And if anybody had the time to go back, they'll see just how wet behind the ears I was, like all the mistakes I made, everything. But it was all very public. Why did you do that? Why did I do it? For accountability to myself. I couldn't afford a training. I couldn't afford a mentorship or mastermind, anything like that. Whereas if I say I'm going to do something out loud to somebody else, I'll do it. If it's in my head, I let myself off the hook, right? So by saying, I've gone on this viewing, I've done this, I'm putting an offer out on this rent to rent, I've got this deal that's for sale, I put it on Facebook. One, it helped me to build my investor list. And two, it was accountability for myself.
Because the reason I asked you that, and it's interesting, I want to note this, you did something that naturally made sense to you, right? You documented everything, whether you was at B&Q or painting a wall, you took a video, you posted it. And that helped with your accountability, with your investor list, to find investors, to no doubt raise finance, to generate more deals, to grow your business, to grow your brand, every single part of it. That came naturally to you, and you did that without any advice.
Oh, it didn't come naturally.
No, but you didn't.
Alex, I did it.
You did it.
Feeling pukey about doing it, building confidence as I went.
But when I say naturally, I mean you knew that you needed to do it.
I knew I needed to do it.
Whereas with us, working with a lot of the people that we work with who are amazing, amazing mentees, they're doing great things. But a common theme with them and everybody else that I've met is they don't want to tell anybody what they're doing. And trying to get them to post their journey, the good and the bad, is like pulling teeth. And they come on the call and they're like, oh, I just made this great booking and things are doing great, 100% occupancy. And I'm like, great. Who knows?
Who knows about it?
We'll know it.
Yeah. So
it's like, come on, guys.
From the November when we got back from Colchester to like probably about the April time, I wasn't really public about it. But when I booked that trip in 2016 to go around the world for 3 months, I had to tell people why. You know, my parents, my mum and my nan, and people were like, oh, hold on, you've gone from crying because you've got no money to booking around the world trip that we know you've not paid for on a credit card because you can't get any. So where's this money come from? So I just started to gently drip in that I was running this business. I'd learned about this thing called rent to rent. Most people kept telling me rent to rent's illegal. You can't do that. It's a crime, blah, blah, blah. It's not. It's a contractual right. But anyway, we'll get into that another time. And as I started to tell people in my real life about it, I then became more comfortable about telling people in my, Facebook's not real. Instagram's not real. Like, it's just visibility, and it's a window of opportunity to connect with people so that they can become real, right? So I did it because I knew I had to do it. And from the point I started traveling, like that April time, I documented my whole trip, which obviously because I wanted to show the world that I was traveling around the world, because why not? My ego loved it. Yeah. And then when I got back, I was like, well, I'm going to just carry this on. And we just carried on doing it. So everything, whether it was a crack in a wall that I didn't know what it was, I'd take a picture. I'd ask Facebook. If I'd had a meeting with somebody, if I was, waking up early for a meeting, going to a networking event, I'd always just take a picture or do a video or something like that. And then once I felt a bit more confident, I started, you'll laugh at this because actually it's quite funny now, but I did a live Q&A every week. I think I did it on like a Tuesday evening, like 6 o'clock. And to start with, no one asked me any questions. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew that I had any knowledge in my brain. So I made up questions that people had asked me, wrote them down. I was like, I went live on Facebook. So I've had these questions. I'm going to answer them. So Paul's asked me blah, 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 blah about rent to rent. This is my opinion. And I would do 3. And the first like 2 or 3 lives that I did, no one. Honestly, the inner narrative of, well, there's no one here. You're talking to yourself. You're staring at a phone. Yeah. Like, what is the matter with you? Why are you doing this? This is some like craziness. And then
imposter syndrome.
All of the things, right? And then the 4th one, there was a couple of people. And then the 5th one, a few more. But I did that every week for a year. There was a couple of like dates that I missed. I had like hundreds of people on at the end. And I was genuinely answering questions. And that connection with people and being helpful, and quite often I'd say, I've got no idea, I'll have to find that out and just come back to you. There's no version of me that's not me. It was always just Sarah. And that really helped because those people became my investors. Those people became friends. Those people became really good connections. And again, it just kind of springboarded everything forward.
It's really, really amazing to hear, because and I say this, like, you've got this technology nowadays to have a shop window to the world for free. Yeah. And as long as you're just using it, and most importantly, you're consistent with it, then it will work. But the hardest thing and the shittiest thing about doing live Facebook videos, especially at the beginning,
it's getting the angle right.
It's getting the angle right. But worse than that is when you hit go live and you're there and you're talking and it says zero viewers and you're like, this sucks. And then what's even worse is when 1 or 2 people join and you're like, oh, I've got 2 people on, and then they drop off.
And then they go.
And you're like, oh my God.
Yes.
The content must be
the ego
so
doesn't
shit.
enjoy that whole vibe.
Yeah.
But, those videos are there, that content's there. It's building your visibility. It's working the algorithms. It's doing all the things that actually we need to do. And lots of people say, well, can I do it without going on socials? Yeah, you can. But you're going to have to get out from being in your pajamas in your living room and behind your email and behind scrolling on Rightmove, and you're going to have to go and walk into rooms and speak to people in real life, which, I don't know about you, but for me, that's way scarier than this.
Well, and I tell you what else, good luck reaching the same amount of people, because I was looking at my stats on the way here, and in the last 28 days, I've reached, I think it was 820,000 people on Facebook alone.
Yeah, exactly that.
Through reels, through stories, through written posts, through picture posts. So good luck trying to go out and knock on 820,000 doors.
People worry so much about what they look like and they're not ready. And girls, right? Girls, you don't need to have your makeup done. Your hair doesn't need to be perfect. Yeah. It's great if you feel like you look great, but it doesn't have to be every time. You can have curated content, and you can just have really normal you content. I used to do loads when I was like out walking or going for a run in the morning, or those sorts of things, and I'd be sweaty, red face, cap on. I'm doing this video because I know I said I would, so here's blah blah blah, whatever I had to say. Have a great day. Again, it's that accountability, visibility, and the connection that you get from that with people that you would never connect with otherwise.
And the ironic thing about that, Sarah, is that the people who are consistently going live like that natural, being who they are without all the makeup, looking like shit, they're the ones now that everybody's resonating with. They've got the biggest following, and the people that are like,
perfect,
got the duck lips and the eyelashes and all that, like, people are sick of that.
I think being the authentic version of you is the thing. And if, wearing a 3-piece suit makes you feel confident, wear it. If having eyelashes and your lips done make you feel confident, then have it. But I think try to tune into the person that you actually want to be, and try not to show up as anything other than that, because trying to keep up a fake version of you for what you think other people want to see is really hard to maintain. Yeah. Whereas if you just turn up, people will like you or they won't. People will listen to you or they won't. It doesn't matter either way. The people that you want will listen, and the people that you don't, just delete them, block them, unsubscribe, whatever it is, because you don't need them. Yeah,
for sure. And I really do. I'm so passionate about this, and we drum it. Well, we try our best to drum it into our mentees. People are so bombarded now with the coming off the jets, and I'm in Dubai in my Lamborghini, and it's like, it's fucking bullshit.
It's fake.
If you go on there and you're like, guys, I'm fighting here, I've got my 2 kids, I'm building my side hustle, here's me at B&Q, I'm going to go for this paint, I don't know if it's going to look good, it'll probably look shit, but I don't really know because I'm learning. That's the stuff that people are like, follow, because I can resonate with that. That's real.
And if you want to drive a Ferrari, right? If you want to go to Dubai and live that life, then do it. But do it for real. The idea, and I talk about this a lot in the book, the idea is to be rich and successful, not just look like you're rich and successful. I know people who are putting private jets on credit cards for photo shoots because they think it's going to sell courses, consultancy, whatever it is. Phoning me up saying, Sarah, I need to borrow some money because I've spent all this money and this is falling out of bed and I've got to pay this person back, blah, blah, blah. Why are you cruising around in a Ferrari that you can't afford? Yeah. Like, I drive a 2007 Range Rover and I love it, right? It's not fancy, it's not flash, it does the job. I can chuck the dog in it, I can chuck all my landlord shit in it.
And you don't have it on 60 monthly payments?
It's not, I've got no repayments on it. It costs me not a lot of money at all. There's no overhead on it. It costs me my tax and my petrol. It gets me from the office to my house and back again. Like, it's a car, it does its job. Now, I have lovely things as well, like, I've got lovely handbags. I've got lovely jewellery. I live in a beautiful house. I go abroad. I've got all the things. Car, for me, I don't need to drive a Ferrari. It doesn't do anything for me at all. But I got to a point in life where, I realised that actually having success and having wealth and having my money tick away in a fund, paying me passively every month to be able to pay for my lifestyle is way more important than feeling like I've got status because I've got a car on finance that I can't really afford. And, you know, I always wanted an Audi R8. That was like my dream car. That was the car that I wanted. And I got to a point where I could afford it. I was going to get it, and I got in it and I test drove it, and I was like, oh.
It does the same thing as my
I don't want it. Where am I going to put the dog?
Yeah.
It's so just not practical at all. Where would I park it? It doesn't make any sense. And I think I aspired to things that other people had told me was success. And actually I'd forgotten about what success really meant to me.
I think it helps to meet people. And I've been very, very lucky, and I've spoken about it before. I've been around billionaires, right? In my previous job working on super yachts, I've had conversations with people that literally click their fingers and the world delivers whatever you want. I've been around people who are serious, like multi-millionaires with beachfront villas, and, you know, and I've been lucky enough to have conversations with these people and find out the truth behind money. I'm not saying having a nice car isn't nice, and, you know, nice watch isn't nice, and nice suits, it is nice. But more importantly, these people have found that, and it sounds cliche and it sounds cheesy, but it's health, it's relationships, it's experiences, it's freedom to make the choices. All of that materialistic stuff over time just causes headaches and stress. It becomes
super empty if you've got no one to enjoy it with, or you're dead.
Yeah. So, so realizing that now is super, super important, because if you start working for that, because if you'd have bought that R8 for 80 grand, like what else could that...
It was 120
grand. What else could that 120 grand buy you?
Well, the finance on it at the time was probably going to be between $600 and $750 a month. Yeah. Well, that's like 2 mortgages on 2 houses.
Yeah. Exactly.
And actually, those houses now generate enough money that, again, I could still have the R8 again, but I don't. I put stuff into the stock market. And
it's so simple. Again, you don't know what you don't know. Secure the assets, use the assets to pay for the car.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
That's the way to do it. Tell me a little bit more in detail about Cognito Wealth, not Cognito Wealth.
Cognito,
Tell us exactly what it is. What is it? Who can it help? Who should be looking into Cognito Wealth?
Cognito Wealth was... created because lots of people were asking me to help them from documenting on Facebook. Can I just pick your brains? Can I take you for coffee? Can I ask you this? And I was like, either I'm going to have to start charging for my time or not help people. And actually, I wanted to help people because I'd been on this really interesting journey. I'd figured out a load of stuff that actually, if other people can do the same, they'll have the same results. It sounded great to me. But I also couldn't keep taking the time out of my business to help other people grow theirs. So we decided to start an education company, basically. And it started with, I would have like a client come into the office for a day, and my first one-to-one, they paid me £50. I hired the room and I bought lunch. So I definitely didn't make any money. It wasn't really about that. And it still isn't really about that. It's more about helping people to implement the head full of theory that they've got. Our industry is well known for lots of training courses that pump your head full of theory, but don't necessarily hold your hand to do the doing, the actual implementation, creating a CRM system, building a sales funnel, getting out and negotiating, creating scripts, building websites, whatever the thing is that you've got to do. They'll teach you the principles of what is rent to rent, what is a flip, what is serviced accommodation, but very few actually deliver on the implementation. Once you're in your office with a laptop, what do you do? Where do you click? What do you say? So I was hearing lots of people say, I've got this head full of theory, but I don't know what to do with it. So we decided to create training that would help people to physically implement, like step by step. Every deal goes through 12 stages, really. So we created a CPD-accredited program that if you implement those 12 things, you'll do a deal at the end. And that's the results that we get for clients. It started in the property world because I was property. And now we've got, we've had thousands of clients go through that program, and they get results when they implement. And actually they're doing, I've got a client that bought 12 houses in 12 months. We've got clients that have raised like over £3 million in private finance. Business only works when you do. And so that's what Cognito is all about. It's about actually doing the doing so that you can create the result that you want.
How do you instill the confidence in someone to take those actionable steps?
So we, as a community, like the community, I don't know how I've done it, but we've got this community of people that just want to cheer each other on. So that in itself is incredible. And, all of our clients, when they join our program, they get access to me. They get access to just pick the phone up to me and say, Sarah, I'm wobbling. What do I do? Or pick up, we've got a mindset coach in there. We've got a deal analysis coach. We've got an SA coach. So whatever they're struggling with, whether it's strategy or money or just general life shit, there's somebody they can pick the phone up to and say, help. And when you say, right, well, if it was me, I would do this, 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 and this. Go and do those steps, then come back to me. And so we instill the confidence by actually being there. They get my number. They actually talk to us. It's not talking to a screen or via a messenger. It's actually having conversation. And sometimes people just need a little pep talk. They just need someone to say, it'll be all right. This thing you're about to do, that offer you're putting out, the numbers are right. I would do that deal. Go for it. And then they hit the next thing, which is, oh God, it's been accepted. Now what? Well, now you need a solicitor. Now you need to think about, where the lending's going to come from if you haven't done that already. Okay, well, who do I speak to? Well, pick up the phone, have a conversation. You need to speak to this person, that person. Go and do those things. Right, now I've bought the house. Now what? Well, you need to start thinking about, obviously, prior to completion, your build team, what you're going to do with it, who's your end tenant, how's your exit. And actually, all of those little tiny components in the bigger picture, if you can tick off each of the boxes of the tiny components, the result will be that you'll make money.
It's a really, really good business model, because I do think that most, and we spoke about it outside, how many people go and do a training course, they leave the room, they get home, and it's like...
And they open their laptop and they go, now what?
Yeah. All of the motivation drops.
Yeah.
The accountability isn't there.
Yeah.
So how does it work? Do people come to you and you sit down with them and you put together a blueprint based on their circumstances? Or do I come to you and say, I want to do HMOs, can you help me?
So we, as a business, we've got different mentors that have different specialisms. So we actually can cover all of the strategies. The only strategy we don't really focus really strongly on is big developments. I'm not a big developer, so I don't pretend to be able to teach people how to do that. It just would be crazy. But I've done flips. I've done buy, refurb, refinance, SA, HMO, all of the other ones. So we brought in a team of coaches that have their own specialism, and a client would come to us and say, okay, I want to get into deal packaging. Okay, well, to do deal packaging, you need to study the deal packaging course that's in there, but you get access to everything when you join. And then you've got the CPD-accredited implementation program that applies the same to everybody. And the first part of that is creating your business plan, setting your KPIs, deciding, who in your team you're going to need. And we check that. So they'll submit that to me as part of their CPD assessment. We check it and say, well, actually, you've said you want to buy 20 houses in 3 months. That's mad. You're not going to do that. Actually, we need to dial it back. You're still in a full-time job. You've got no money. Actually, you could maybe buy a house in the next 6 months or 2 houses in the next 6 months, but you're not going to buy 20 in 3 months. It's just not doable. Because I think a lot of people set themselves up to fail by setting goals that are just impossible.
Yeah.
Conveyancing at the moment takes 16 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks, right? So if you've got an offer accepted today, best case scenario, you're not complete until, 5th
of August.
So September, October, November, December. You're not complete until Christmas.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't really factor that into their business plan. So it's about bringing them back to the actual reality of running their company. What is the sales cycle of a rent to rent? What is the sales cycle of a flip? That sort of stuff. So we start there, we help them build their business plan, and then we say, right, that's the plan. What do you need to actually do all of those things? Well, you're going to need somebody to go out and do viewings because you want to do Doncaster and you're based in Brighton and you've got a full-time job. Well, you need to connect with somebody that can go and do viewings in Doncaster. That's a reality. You're not going to be able to do it without the support or outsourcing it or hiring somebody. In reality, you need to build a business. So each of those steps, all the way from thinking about you want a business to making money and paying your tax bill at the end of the year, everything in there, we check it off one by one by one.
Yeah, amazing. I love the sound of it because there are so many moving parts. What is tax? What is VAT?
Yeah.
How do I choose a solicitor? Where do I find the deal? There's so many moving parts, which again comes back to why so many people just don't take action. But going back to what you said about people kind of coming in gung-ho, I'm going to buy 50 properties in the next 6 months. what's the famous Tony Robbins saying? People overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in a decade. 10, yeah, it's so true. Have a long-term vision, have that why concreted in your brain of why you're doing it, and just keep. And I say, choose your direction. Say, I want to go there. Nothing's going to blow me off course. I'm going to keep getting up. I'll get knocked over. I'll get up again. But as long as I'm going in that direction slowly, it might be slowly, but keep moving in that one direction and you will get there at some point. Might not be next year, might not be in 5 years, but at some point you'll get there. So you just got to keep chipping away.
Stay on the blue line, right? So have you ever run a marathon?
I've done a triathlon.
So they have a blue line on the run. So when I did London, they paint a blue line on for the elites, right? To follow the blue line, to get the shortest path of least resistance from the start to the finish. A sat nav is a blue line. You go in, you put in your place, it tells you where to get to. Just stay on your blue line. Draw a blue line, stick to it. Path of least resistance. Don't get distracted. You don't need to get distracted. Just stay on the blue line.
And I bring it right back before, people even maybe contact you about Cognito Wealth or whoever you decide to go to. The biggest challenge at the beginning is sifting your way through all of the bullshit online when you're trying to look for a course or a mentor or a way out of the shitty situation you're in. And
do your due diligence.
I would say, coming back to what Sarah just said, if you're watching a video of someone saying, I'm going to show you how to secure 12 rent-to-rent deals in the next month, like unsubscribe, delete, and throw the fucking computer out the window, because it's bullshit and it's snake oil, and a lot of people are getting burnt.
The best ones are people who are selling deal packaging training that aren't VAT registered. You're doing hundreds of thousands of pounds apparently in package deals, but you're not VAT registered. Why? You should be. Legally.
Find someone who can even help you to ask the right questions, because again, when you bring it right back to grassroots level, it's like you don't even, what you just said, Sharon sitting at home who works in Sainsbury's, she doesn't know that means that it's bullshit.
Do due diligence. Google their name with the word scam and see what comes up. Google their name, their company, and look on Companies House at their accounts, because it's all public data. We all live a very public life as entrepreneurs. And all right, we are as tax efficient as we can be. But if somebody's making a loss for the last 10 years on Companies House, last 4 years on Companies House, isn't VAT registered, but it's claiming they're making hundreds of thousands of pounds in profit, there's something not right about that. You've got to question it. And there's a difference between I made 100 grand and I kept 100 grand. I turned over 100 grand is not I made 100 grand. Profit, net and gross, and turnover and net profits, they're all very different things. The basics of business is that stuff, and that's where people are getting caught up.
It's no different from someone going and dumping 20 grand into a rent-to-rent deal and then going, guys, I just got this £1,500 booking, wow, this business is amazing. It's like you're not even breaking even yet. Calm down. Calm down.
Great work, well done, but let's get the business up and running to actually make some money.
Absolutely. Great stuff. The time is flying by here. We've got a lot of stuff on our ass. What is your Cognito Wealth? Sounds amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Well done on building that. It's such a great system. I really, really like that. It's new. It's different. I like the way that you handhold all the way through. What is your vision? What is your why? What's your driving direction? Where are you trying to get to at the end of it all?
So,
not at the end of it all. No, I didn't mean that. I mean, like,
I'm not sure how to answer
what's the dream here?
So,
why are you doing all the hard work?
When I started, I really didn't know why I was doing all the hard work, actually. And I remember a time where my Nana Vi, who's like my nan's mum, so she's not with us now, but she was really poorly. And I remember I was able, because I run my own business, I was able to just spend the days with her at the hospice and at the hospital. And whilst that's a very sad memory for me, I remember thinking in that time, this is what it's about for me. It's about being able to not have to ask permission. It's actually not about the flash stuff. Like, it's nice to have nice things, but in reality for me, it's about knowing that, when my mum was poorly last year, I just went and stayed with her for 3 days, and I don't have to ask for permission to do that. And that's triggered really from, in 2013, my partner had quite a serious car accident, and my boss at the time, I had to ask permission to leave, and she said, well, can you not just go in a couple of hours because we've got this really important call? No, I can't wait. I've got to go. Like, there's something quite serious has happened. And I remember thinking then, I will never, ever, ever ask for permission to do something that's important. And, you know, the holidays and all the lovely stuff that we have as entrepreneurs, that's not really what it's about for me. It's about that ability to choose for myself where I want to be and what I want to do. And so, you know, I live a life now where actually I choose what I want. And, you know, there are some days where, you know, I have to be at work and I can't just be swanning about doing whatever. But most of the time I choose my own things that I'm up to. I'm financially free. I've got enough money. You know, if I didn't work another day for a very long time, I'd be all right. But so now I just have fun with it. Now it's like, what can I do that impact other people in a way that brings them along this journey? I remember being in 2015 in a shit ton of debt, unhappy, scared, you know, stressed, worrying about money all of the time. What if I could impact other people so that they just don't have to worry about money? What if I could just make a difference in that capacity? And that's what led to me writing the book. It's what led to us launching, we have a program called Stock Savvy. It's £2 a week subscription. It's not designed to make loads of money. For me, it's designed literally to impact.
Educate people.
And help people to understand that if you've got 10 quid, you can start investing. You don't have to wait until you've got hundreds of thousands of pounds. You don't have to be rich to start investing. Investing is what will make you rich. And so I wrote the book because it's everything I wish I'd been taught about money before I got into debt, while I was at school, before I started putting money in the wrong places. It's everything that I wish I'd been taught about due diligence and risk management and money mindset that no one ever really sat me down and explained. That it's basically the journey that I've been on with money, and how actually, if I'd have known all of what's in the book at the beginning, I'd be in a really different place now. Yeah. And even better, if my parents had known it, compound interest, and could have, you know, in the book I talk about how you can give your children £1 million on their 35th birthday by actually not needing very much to start with. Well, if they'd done that on my 35th birthday, I could have bought a house. I wouldn't have a mortgage. Life would be really different for me. And so I want to just try and empower people to make different choices with their money, understand how it actually works, and low and middle income people to benefit from what the rich people in the world are benefiting from every day.
I think it's amazing what you're doing. It's spreading the word, you know, financial education. Don't even get me started about kids at school.
The lack of it.
Yeah, kids at school and leaving at 16 not knowing what credit card is. We're going to talk about that book in just a minute. As we start to think about wrapping things up, I've just got a couple of quick fire questions that I think, you know, picking your brain on might help some people at home.
Okay.
What are 3 non-negotiable behaviours that you believe everyone needs to follow in order to be successful? What's the 3 top behaviours? Because I hear very obvious traits repeated here with people that I'm sitting down with, that they follow, that becomes part of who they are, their identity, and it seems to come up in time and time again. So I'm interested to know what's the top 3 things for you.
Really good question. I think the first thing is decide what success is to you, because if you don't care about having an Audi R8 when it's there in front of you, but you've fought for years to get it, there's a disconnect. Like, actually sit and ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like? Does that matter to me? Am I striving for something that I care about? And I definitely did that wrong. No one ever really asked me, what is it that you want your life to look like? Then anyway. So I think the first thing is actually define what you want, not what you think you should want based on what Instagram tells you, based on what other people tell you. Like, it's okay to define success as, I just want to be able to pick my kids up from school every day. It is okay to define success as, I want to drive a Ferrari. It's different for everybody. Define what that is. The second thing I think is surround yourself with people who, they don't need to get it, but they need to support you. Like, they need to be, lots of my friends are like, we don't really know what you do for a living. We don't get it. I'm a bit like Chandler. Friends of mine call me Chandler, right? No one really understands what I do, but they're happy for me and they cheer me on. Be careful of the people that don't cheer you on when you're doing well. There's lots of people who you'll start to see that aren't actually happy for you, even though really you think they should be. So surround yourself with just good people. And the third thing I think is be sensible with your money. You know, the idea is to be successful and wealthy, not just look like you're successful and wealthy. And, you know, anyone can buy a Gucci belt, a Louis Vuitton handbag, but actually if it's on a credit card and it's pointless, or it's fake, or, you know, what is the point? Decide what success is for you. Surround yourself with good human beings that can cheer you on and hold you accountable, and make good choices with your money. I think they're my three.
Someone once said to me something that really stuck in my mind. I used to work on boats. Boats are very expensive.
Yes.
To own, to run, to sell, whichever way you cut it.
Someone said to me, if you ever want to know if you've got enough money to have a boat, assume that your boat, you buy it, and on the first day you own it, it's sunk, and it doesn't matter. Then you can afford a boat. Until then, you
just
can't.
Completely screwed up my.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So someone once said to me, Sarah.
Sorry, Alex.
It wasn't quite like that, but it was a little bit simpler. It was, you know, you can only ever afford a boat if, when you buy that boat, it doesn't affect anything else in your life.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so true. And what you said about, you know, driving the flash car and buying the fancy watch, go do it. If it doesn't, if you don't need to give it a second thought, but if you're looking at, can I manage the payments? You know, am I going to have to skip a dinner out this month with the wife to buy this watch? Like, you can't afford it. So just leave it where it is.
I think attaching things to milestones and rewards has worked really well for me. So my first big milestone was a Cartier watch. And I said, when I can go to the bank and I can see 6 figures on my thing, I'll buy myself a Cartier watch. And the first day I could see 6 figures in my bank account, I went and I bought a Cartier watch.
$95,000
No, it wasn't that at all. It was the watch I wanted, and I didn't ask the price. And I knew that would be okay. One, because I roughly know how much Cartier watches were, because I like that brand. And that feeling was amazing. And every time I wear it, I feel amazing. I remember the hard work that went into getting that. So it wasn't just a watch for the sake of a watch that means nothing. It's, you know, it was a really important part of my journey to here. Yeah. So I find that those big things, those nice kind of indulgent things, they're attached to a milestone. And I remember every time I put it on, I remember what it took to get that. And that makes me fueled again and ready to go again. Yeah,
for the next milestone. Nice. So second question, what would your advice be to a young Sarah Poynton Ryan just starting out today? What would your best advice be? Top tips, most important?
To me, I think remember to stay humble. There's definitely been moments where I've not been the most gracious version of myself, and it's never worked out well.
Was it when you flipped off your neighbour in the RA? Wheel spinning away. You know,
we all grow up, right? When we're young, you don't always make the right choices. Would I make the same decisions 40-something me as 20-something me? Definitely not. I think be humble, but also be bold enough to do the thing that you've been thinking about forever. Because if you're still thinking about it, it's something. You know, we have an ideas board at the office, and I'm a very ideas-led person. I get loads of ideas all of the time. And I write it on the board. And if at the end of the month I'm still excited about that idea, then we do something with it. If I'm not, then actually it was just a flash in a pan and I bin it off. I think to give advice to younger me, I would say don't think about things for so long. Be bolder, be more brave, because who cares if it doesn't work? What's the worst that can happen? Doesn't matter. I've had so many ideas that have gone wrong. I've lost money, I've made mistakes, I've worked with the wrong people. But actually, all of those mistakes that I've made have taught me something new. And had I never made them, I certainly wouldn't be sat here now. So be brave.
I think a lot of people worry about putting themselves out there and, for example, starting a membership club or whatever it is, and thinking that people are going to be looking, going, what the hell's Sarah know? Who she thinks she is? But in matter of fact, you know, reality, people are looking at you and going, damn, you know, good on her. Like,
when I wrote the book, I totally had that.
I wish I could do what Sarah's doing.
Who am I to write a book about money? Like, everyone knows about money. Like, what am I doing? But I had to do it for me. And I never actually thought many people would read it. I thought like my immediates would read it. Yeah. We've sold thousands and thousands of copies, and I'm super proud of that. Yeah. But be brave, be bold, do the thing.
Do it. Screw it. Just do it. As Dickie Brown said.
Yeah.
And last one, what is one simple thing that everybody can do every day to improve their financial situation? I'm talking about all those people at home that are up against it, you know, living in their overdraft. You know, what can they do to improve their financial situation? It's something little that could help them grow.
Budget. Like, actually have a budget. Look at your money. Look at your bank. I know when I had no money, I never looked at my bank account. I'd just spend until it said no. Whereas now I look at my money every day and move it in the right places. I mean, it's all automated now. I talk about this a lot in the book. But look at your money. If you just ignore it, it will go down. If you look at it and you're protective of it and you consider what it is you're spending and on what, it will probably go up. It's the visibility, the awareness, having a budget, trying to stick to it, and actually looking at your money will make a massive difference. It'll be uncomfortable to start with, but it will make a big difference.
It's not nice when you get told or someone advises you that you have to make massive cutbacks in your life because of the situation you're in. But I know people that have nothing, literally nothing, but they still every day, without thinking, will nip into the Nero and grab a £4.50 coffee.
Yeah, I got Starbucks on the way here. It was like £7.
Yeah.
Now, I can afford that and it doesn't impact massively. But I then think to myself, well, if I put that £7 into the S&P 500 this morning, bearing in mind it's fallen off a cliff this morning, it's down by like 14% or something. Well, I could have bought shares super cheap, basically on sale, and they'll be coming back up next month. That £7 could go a long way. By the time I'm 50, that's like compounded massive money. Why am I choosing to spend £7 on a coffee? And I think a lot of people unconsciously spend. And that's what I say, if you look at your money, actually, hold on, how many coffees did I buy this month? Yeah, and it might not be coffee for you. There's lots of people that aren't spending £7 on coffee and are still struggling anyway. But it's the being aware of it. Maybe there's a £10 a month subscription that you've forgotten about. You did a free trial and it's ticked on and you've just not noticed it because you haven't looked at your bank account for 3 months.
So many
those things, so many. There's so much money that I've wasted on stuff like that. Look at your bank account every day, every single day, regardless of if you feel icky about it. Just look.
Amazing advice. The subscription thing is massive. Cut out the expensive coffees. Think about those spontaneous purchases that you just like, every day. It's contactless, right?
It's easy when
Never
it's
happened.
contact. Yeah, absolutely.
One last thing, Sarah, that I'm quite passionate about, that I like to just ask each of my guests around mental health. I've had my issues. I think most people have. Your marriage wobbles can bring a lot of anxiety, depression. And I think it's easy when people are listening. I always say it, watching you, you're flying, doing great things. And there's a lot of people in where you were, right, who were sitting at home crying, head in their hands, debt, don't know where to turn. Potentially looking at you and pedestalizing you, saying, well, it's all right for Sarah, I could never do that, she's got this, she's got that, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough. So I just like to ask my guests, like, how's your mental health? How's your head, heart, day-to-day moods? Do you have any anxieties? Do you have any mental health kind of issues? Not all the time, but maybe occasionally. Does that still exist in someone who's doing really, really well in business and life?
It totally exists. I ask myself often, am I making the right decisions? Is it the right thing? Like I said earlier, the decisions I make today impact whether someone else can pay their mortgage next month, not just me, but my staff, my team. And that's hard in itself. There are days still now where, my best friend has to pick up the pieces and talk me down from a ledge and be like, it'll be all right. This is just a blip and, things are going wrong. We've had issues we've just been up in Scotland a few weeks ago because we had a tenant move in, not pay rent for a year, trash the house. It's cost us thousands of pounds. And I cried. I was upset. It really did bother me. And Andy picked up the pieces and he was like, it'll be fine. It's just money and it's business and we treat it as such. My mental health is predominantly great, but I would be lying if I said that it's always okay, because it is, I'm not somebody that says I suffer with anxiety or depression. I think that's not really a label that I would associate to it, but I absolutely have days where I think, I just don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm out. It's really hard. I'm really struggling. Why are you doing it when you've actually got enough? Why do you keep fighting for whatever it is that you're doing? And then I remember what actually the point is. And like I said earlier, because I really do want to impact people, and talking about money with people that just don't understand it and helping them to realize just that little click of a difference. Just look at your bank account every day. People come back to me when they've done that for 3 months and they're like, I've cleared a credit card. Amazing. Incredible. I remember how that feels. So, being in business is hard. Being a human being in the world right now is also hard. Look at the news. I mean, I don't watch the news, but I see social stuff. Look at where we are as a country. Look at where we are as a world. There's not many people that aren't going to have some days at least where they think, what the fuck is happening?
Future's not looking
too
great.
The future's not looking too great. This is why I want to talk to you about moving to Spain, right? But I think it's about, for me anyway, the way I deal with that is I am surrounded by people that I trust to pull me out of it when I need it. And I'm also there for those same people. And that I call it my glue, the glue that holds me together are, my husband, my best friend, the people that in my family that I can go to and say, I don't need to be switched on. I don't need to be the social media version of me, podcast version of me, work version of me, boss version of me. I can just sit here and buckle and you won't judge me. You'll just give me a cuddle, make me a cup of tea, we'll chat it through. And I'll realize that actually I've got the answers. I just need to get it out before I can find those answers. And it is hard out there right now, but at the same time, there's so much opportunity.
There is.
And so I get super excited about stuff. But yeah, of course, it comes in waves, but generally I'm good.
Good. Glad to hear it. Well, amazing episode.
Thanks for having
so
me.
much great information. We've got the book here, Money Mechanics.
Yep.
Available, all good.
On Amazon.
Yep.
It's on paperback and also on audio on Amazon. Or if you DM me, I can send you a link and you can get it cheaper from me direct.
Yeah. I haven't got this, but I'm definitely... Is it on Audible?
It is on Audible, yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. Because I really struggle to read. I don't think my ADHD helps that, but I'll definitely listen to it. It looks really cool, full of really great information, helping you to sort out your finances. I love that. Financial education. There's so many people... Because it's not taught. It's like you don't know the basics about money. Debt, good debt, bad debt, cash flow, investment. Fantastic. We've also got your membership club. Remind me of the name of that.
So Stock Savvy is what it's called, and it's real for beginners. If you've never invested in the stock market or you've only been doing it for maybe 3 to 12 months, you want to understand what all the jargon is. You want to understand where to buy a stock from, what is a fund, all the basic stuff. If you're already making money in the stock market, it's not for you, but it's like a beginner version. It's £2 a week, and I can give you the link to put up with the show notes.
We'll put that in the show notes.
People can DM me and I can send them the link.
And then there's also Cognito Wealth.
And Cognito Wealth, which is very much the property side. If, again, people want to message me, I can give you the link. But anyone who's considering that, we like to speak to you first to check it's right for you, because my worst nightmare would be to take somebody's money and then it not be for them. So I'd rather have a conversation with you, tell you what it's going to be, what it will do for you. And if you think it's right, then we'll get you signed up and joined in. Love it.
Absolutely love it. Guys, I'm sure you'll agree. It's been amazing chatting to Sarah. Check out all of Sarah's information in the show notes, all of your socials, Cognito Wealth, the link to get the book, the subscription club. It's all going to be there. Reach out to Sarah, connect with Sarah. I'm sure you'd be happy to have a chat with anyone who wants some advice and some information. Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Loved it.
Thanks for everybody for watching and listening at home. And until next week, we'll see you then for another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. Thanks for watching. Take care. Goodbye.